Fantastiskt roligt att se er här. Jag hoppas att ni känner detsamma. Vi har kommit till avslutningen av de här 2 dagarna. Och det är ju så, när man är på konferens, när man hör väldigt många bra grejer, så är det ändå väldigt lätt att man går hem och fortsätter att göra det man alltid har gjort på samma sätt som man alltid har gjort det. Det här har vi nämnt några gånger under de här 2 dagarna. Vikten att faktiskt också ta till sig det som man har hört. Och då är ju reflektion väldigt bra. Fundera på vad är det jag tar med mig härifrån. Men också den här frågan, kanske ännu viktigare. Vad kommer jag de facto att göra annorlunda imorgon mot för hur jag har gjort det tidigare? Och nu är ju nätverket inte helt alert när det gäller just den här datorn. Jag tittar på min padda istället, den är snabbare. Det ni säger, det som är de stora orden, det ni kommer göra annorlunda, det är att ni kommer utmana mer, ni kommer leda, ni kommer prata med min fru. Kommer där. Alltså, har du inte gjort det hittills så är ju det ett jättebra tips att göra om du vill ha en bra relation. För mycket av det vi har pratat om de här 2 dagarna, det är ju relationer. Att få med sig sina medarbetare, att få med sig ledningen, att få med sig användarna, de man vill nå. Våga, utmana. Men att prata med min fru, det är tydligen det som många av er kommer att göra. Härligt! Då kanske vi kommer få se en förändring när det gäller antalet skilsmässor. Nej, jag skojar. Nu hörni, så ska vi prata om en sak som vi måste hantera på ett annat sätt oavsett vi vill det eller inte. Och det är PUL. För den 25 maj, då börjar nya regler att gälla. Då är det dags för GDPR som kommer att förändra hela vårt samhälle, påverka hela vårt samhälle på ett eller annat sätt. Den nya lagen, den nya förordningen som kommer att gälla i hela EU. Och det är ju så att om man inte gör det här på rätt sätt så kan man få höga böter. Och det finns ju en liten konflikt här emellan att hantera personuppgifter och att faktiskt digitalisera vårt samhälle. Så hur ska vi hantera GDPR på ett bra sätt? Det ska vi få veta nu. Vi kommer att få 8 enkla, användbara verktyg och metoder för hur vi ska se till att vår organisation ska bli GDPR compliant. Så vi har en expert med oss på området. Mina damer och herrar, ge en riktigt varm applåd till Lawrence Öqvist. Och Karen, jag tänkte att vi skulle börja med att kolla lite hur pass up to GDPR som publiken är. Så vi tar upp verktyget igen. Och så ska ni få byta till nästa fråga som är det. Har ni börjat med ert GDPR-projekt? Ja, nej eller vi vet ju inte riktigt hur vi ska börja med det här. Även om vi vet att vi måste.
Vi vet inte.
Avvakta lite för att fler ska hinna svara så vi får lite att mäta mot, för ni kommer få svara på ett par frågor till. Och då ser vi att när 70 av er har svarat så är majoriteten, 80% har börjat arbeta med GDPR. Mycket, mycket bra. Ännu fler, ju fler som svarar. Karen, är det här någonting som du möter när du är ute och snackar? Att det är många som har börjat?
Ja. Jag bara undrar hur de tänker, de som har inte börjat än.
Nej, det är ju några som inte har börjat.
Sover ni på natten? Okay.
Nej, sov inte. Utan fundera snälla på hur ni ska göra. Det kommer ni veta efter den här dragningen. Och några som inte vet hur de ska börja. Okej, vi tar nästa fråga. Har ni en ansvarig för GDPR-projektet? Och det är klart, ni som har börjat, ni borde kanske ha det. Eller också har ni börjat ändå.
Ja.
Det är bra. De flesta har en ansvarig. Ja. Några som inte vet och några som inte har det. Då tar vi sista frågan. Har ni en budget för det här? Det här är intressant. De flesta har börjat. Men de flesta här inne i alla fall har inte någon budget. Eller vet inte om ni har någon budget för GDPR. Som en bakgrund, Karen, till din dragning. Och det vi kan nämna är att du kör din dragning på engelska. Men frågorna går att ta på svenska.
Ja.
Välkommen hit.
Tack så mycket. Som ni hör, jag kan svenska, men jag är ganska van att prata på scenen i engelska. So we're going to start with basics. Just to warm up a little bit about the subject eminent of GDPR. First, we're going to just start with, what is personal data? Now, there's a GDPR definition. Oops. Hello. Technique. Oh, thank you. Okay. This is what the GDPR says, the legal definition. Now, luckily, I've actually put this to something a little bit easier. It is basically any data that can be linked directly or indirectly to you as an individual. So it's not just your name, your address, your personal ID. It is, in fact, the loaf of bread you bought at the supermarket last week. It could be the name of your cat. It is the data that you input into a website when you buy a book on ad libris. It's the personal data that you share via an app on your telephone. You want to find your favorite coffee shop. And it uses GPS data and something called location-based services, which is data giving information, your personal data, that is covered in the GDPR. And why is this? Because it has the chance to cause harm to an individual. Let's say that you've downloaded an app on your telephone from your insurance company. And this is correlated with your GPS data. This can be used in accidents to sort of find out how fast you were going at any moment in time. Personal data is bodily security also. So when you go to the airport in England, they make you stand in scanners. It is the voice data that travels over telephone networks. And it's not just the data, it is the data concerning who you rang, how long you've been on the telephone, and then who you rang next. It's the surveillance cameras in the underground. You know that surveillance cameras, they can actually capture, by the way you're walking, gait recognition, who you are, facial recognition. Now, if you put this together with big data, analytics, which is possible today, to intelligently correlate data about you, a profile can be built on you, a picture of who you are and what you do from the moment you get up in the morning until you go to bed at night. And this data can be used to discriminate against you. Right. There is something else. There's another legal definition. I haven't quite got the idea of where I need to point there. That is called processing. Now, processing is anything you do with personal data in your, if you sort of say, in your role, in your work. That's the legal definition. The easy definition is that processing is anything you do with personal data. So in your role within the government sector, the myndigheter, You have a website where you are collecting personal data. The pure act of collecting is processing. Then you will do something with that data to make decisions, which is processing. Then you will store it into IT systems. Lagra, which is processing. Then your technical guys will put it so it will be stored on extra storage, so that it's in long-time storage, but you can still access it, nearline storage. That's processing. And this personal data will be backed up onto some media somewhere, and it could be stored in a data center somewhere else. You're not doing anything with it, but this is processing. So as long as you have personal data stored somewhere in your organization, that organization, I talk mainly sort of organization, but the public sector, as long as that information exists, it is still processing. It only stops being processing when you either securely remove that data using recognized industry techniques for destruction, or that data is securely anonymized. And basically, processing is done by, the purpose of processing is done by the myndigheter or organizations in the role of what is called controller. Now, if we go back to what is personal data, which is any data that can be linked directly or indirectly to an individual, it means that it impacts every single employee, every person in an organization. Now, I don't know if anyone's heard of something called Esperanto. There's actually a few million people that speak this. It's called, what they try to do is a language that they invented, it's human invented, to find an easy language that we could all speak easily. Now, people that need to understand what you need to do to be able to find and to be able to manage this personal data so it does not cause harm to an individual. You know, like one of your employees loses it at the airport, on their computer, on their telephone. There needs to be a common privacy language, what I call a GDPR language that everybody in the organization understands. Because clearly, the legal language, unless you're a legal guy, and you wake up in the morning, and when you eat your cereal, you also you eat legal language, unless you're that kind of profile, and I'm most certainly not. We need to have a language that everybody can understand. And to do this, it requires training, and it becomes a change management project. Right. So, this change management project impacts, it starts off at the board level, or at the high management level, because you need budget. And it needs to be presented in a way that makes sense at that level so that they know what they're spending the money on. It's not to do with IT. This is to do with protecting personal data. And for most of you sat in the room, personal data is your core product. It's what you do every day. It needs to, personal data is woven in every single business function. So whenever an individual goes onto the website to one of the services, they are interacting with a digital touch point of the public sector, of your organization, the services that you're offering to the general public. This is a business function. So the people driving and running the business functions need to understand GDPR and what it is in a simple way. And then there's the operational level. So you need to have the high-level policies in place. What do we have to do? Yes, we need to have a risk-based approach to privacy. Then you need to make processes. Your business processes need to be documented so that you understand the channels that personal data is flowing on, coming from outside of the organization through to the internal organization. It could be a website, it could be the telephone, or it could be an app. And this needs to be translated into operational levels so that the people working at the operational level know what to do. And this is where you get to the people and the employees. That basically, in every single organization, there is personal data that is embedded in business functions, but there is also personal data, what I call invisible data. I was at this event last night, and there was somebody doing invisible playing cards as a trick. And I thought it was quite cool. Because this is also in the organization, wherever you are, wherever you're working, there is invisible personal data. There's a CRM system, or there is the databases, and you may download personal data into a spreadsheet because you want to do a special analysis. You have Word documents. You have emails. In Sweden, there's even something called missbruksregler today. And missbruksregler means that all unstructured personal data is exempt from pool. How lovely. Except tomorrow, it's not going to be the case anymore. So that magician's trick last night, with those invisible playing cards, just think about that, of all the personal data, that is any data linked directly or indirectly to an individual that you have across your organizations, every business function, every process, that is being stored, that is unstructured, and the business function is unaware of it. The owner of the business function doesn't know about it because it's every employee that is doing their own thing. So that has to be approached bottom up. Every employee needs to be trained. What is personal data? What is processing, which you now know? And why should I care? Well, it's quite straightforward why you should care. Because we are all individuals. And it also is about us and about our privacy. You know, it was really funny because there was a book, a favorite book of mine, which I read a few years ago. It was called David Brin, Transparent Society. And a quote from the book is that we all want privacy for ourselves, but not for everyone else. And this is the most fundamental and core dilemma in privacy. Okay, now, this, I'm sorry to scare you, but this is actually the GDPR definition of, basically, there are articles that talk about the processing of personal data. We talked a little bit before about an Esperanto, which is a common language. So what I normally say is that let's put that GDPR language away. We'll let the legal guys play with that, although we can teach them our Esperanto. Because in fact, privacy has been around for many years. You know, it's derived from 1953 Human Rights Declaration. And 1980, there were, in fact, 8 privacy principles that were defined by the Organization of Economic Development. And this has become the lowest common denominator in privacy globally. And, you know, it's actually not so difficult to understand. And I'm going to teach you now. 1, collection limitation principle. You should collect only what is needed for the purpose. And maybe you need to get consent. Data quality principle. You, as the controller, which is what you are in your role as employee working on behalf of your employer, have the responsibility to ensure personal data is kept up to date. So the data subject are your clients, medborgare, that use your services, have the right to challenge the quality of their data. And of course, if you're really smart, you would have implemented as much self-service as you can. But of course, with those self-services, you need to ensure that there is security in place to ensure that the data subject is who they say they are. But of course, we're using Bank ID here in Sweden, so that's easy. Purpose specification principle. You have to have a purpose for the collection of personal data. If you don't have a specific purpose, you should not be doing it. Use limitation principle. Internally, after collection of personal data, and you have a specific purpose, how you use the personal data internally has to either be, one, directly correlated with the purpose, which means your internal use has to align with the purpose. So let's say, for example, you buy a book on adlibris.se. You share your name and your address, and the purpose is to have the book delivered to your home address. That's very easy. Now, Adlibris, if they take that data, they need to channel it through to the delivery department, or they may share it with DHL or another provider, so that you can get your book delivered to your home. But if the marketing guys come along, they sort of think, what can we do with this? We can add these to our sales database, CRM database. Or let's add cookies on their computer. No. The use limitation states the has to be aligned to the purpose, which means marketing, if they want to use that data, the data subject, which is the individual, needs to give their explicit permission. Otherwise, they are not allowed to do anything. Security safeguards principle. And funnily enough, this is about security. It's the only part about security. And it directly correlates with a part of the GDPR called Article 32 that states that you need to have secure processing in place. And we're not going to go into that here, but it's the stuff that the security guys have been doing for years. So it's nothing new. Openness principle. There needs to be absolute transparency with all your dealings with the individual, the data subject. Which means that you need to have a privacy notice, a secretess policy that states why you're collecting personal data, what are you doing with it, the rights that they have as the data subject, who you're sharing it with, and where you can be contacted in case the data subject has specific questions concerning their personal data, because they have rights to challenge the data quality in Part 2. Openness principle is also about the breach notification. You know, one question I heard is that somebody said, what happens if I lose 5 5 records, personal data, on a computer somewhere, do I need to notify the Datainspektion, the supervisory authority, as they will become next year? And if there is going to be a potential harm to the individual, the response is yes. But the breach notification needs to be a process with a policy. And the breach notification, just in case you didn't know what it is, there is a requirement in the GDPR that if you lose personal data, you have to inform the Datainspektion. There are some exceptions, but we won't go into those here. You can ask me afterwards. Individual participation principle actually correlates directly with the rights of the data subject in the GDPR. And the way that you can think about it, to make it really simple, is that the GDPR is written around the data subject. The data subject, the individual, you and I, not as employees, although we're data subjects as employees too, but you and I, we own our personal data. When I buy a book online, I am loaning my personal data to Adlibris, Amazon.com, so that they can provide a service for me, which is to deliver the book to my home address. Nothing more. After that, they have to delete it unless they ask my permission. It's my personal data. Accountability principle. You need to have evidence that you are doing everything that is stated in the other 7 principles, that you have communicated to your ecosystem about your practices in the collection and processing of personal data. This is a more technical one, but just so you see, the 8 principles have also been translated into an ISO standard. Just see how we're doing for time. Oy. Okay, so you should have sort of worked it out by now that the GDPR and compliance with that is not to do with technology, process, and people. No, it's about people first. And then it's about process, because personal data, at least the data that is known in the organization, is embedded in business processes. Although you have the personal data that is invisible, that you need to surface somehow with training or whatever. And technology, where does technology come into it? Well, the GDPR was updated because of the technology, something called Internet of Things. With Internet of Things is what's on your telephone, what's in your home that does your measurement on your electricity. It's when you go to the checkout and you have cards now and you just need to scan it. You don't even need to put it in. Now, what I normally recommend, if you need to get started, because I saw there were some people responding, they didn't know where to start. Treat the GDPR as a change management project and cut that big elephant into small pieces. If you don't do it, you will get indigestion. Go GDPR fish. What processes do you have already that you can basically reuse? Are you following processes for IT service management? Are you using the ISO standard for 27001, which is the information security standard? And I know you are, because you have an interpretation of that. What do you have already that you can reuse, and don't buy anything until you've checked that out? There's one product you will need to buy, and that is to have a database with your personal data, your data processing activities. That's the Go Fish. Do not reinvent the wheel. And yes, remember accountability 1.8 on the previous slide, evidence everything. Right, another scoping tool, think about it in top-down and inside-out. Inside-out is the people part of your organization. So when you're trying to do your data discovery project, for example, top-down, you can go through the business processes and structure your projects by business function, not by IT system. When a data subject makes a request, they don't ask, can I have access to an IT system? They will ask to have access to personal data that's linked to a business process. So it makes perfect sense. And what you need to achieve across the whole organization is something called data protection by design as a default. So for example, for your in-shop function procurement, before they buy any IT system or any application, the first question that they should be asking, you need to have an extra decision point, will personal data be included in this system? And what the GDPR is trying to do with this, what it's called data protection by design as a default, is to bring quality management into how we manage personal data, with the ultimate goal to weave privacy into every part of the organization and every business function, so that no harm to the data subject will occur. I think we are getting low on time now, so I'll hop over this, but this is basically to do with the risk analysis that we have. Now, there's two types of risk that you may get confused by, but within privacy, we talk about privacy risk is potential harm to the individual. All other risks go up. They're like operational risks and corporate risk. I don't know how I'm doing for time. 5 minutes, yeah. Okay, I can explain this a little bit more then. So privacy risk is about the harm to the data subject. So when you are making decisions on, can we do this or not, you need to stand into the feet of the data subject and think what harm can come to them. And when you're looking at what's your risk appetite when it comes to privacy risk, a risk appetite from an organization perspective is how much risk are we prepared to take, you know, brand damage and this type of thing. But when you're looking at privacy risk, you have to make those decisions on how much you spend and how far you go to protect the individual. And this is where you have privacy risk appetite. You have to do it from the data subject's perspective. Okay. Yes. I am the CEO for a company called Privacy. We are a pure privacy company. We were probably the first to be around. And we care very much about people. And that's why I'm up here today. Is there any questions?
Questions. And why only organizations and not private persons? Every person today keeps a lot of data from other persons.
Yes. There is actually an exemption in the GDPR, and it's called for household use. And this actually is protected as long as it's not for some commercial use. However, there was a case in Austria recently which was very interesting because there was a child, it was a young girl that had grown up to become 18 years old, and she took her parents to court for posting pictures of her on Facebook. And the parents refused to remove them. And the daughter won the case. So, you know, the way that you need to think about it, it's like a law is passed, and it gives you, it's like when a baby is born, it's the DNA, you have the DNA of the baby. And then after this, you have something called case law, which is the environment and things that happen like this case that actually influence how the law will work in practice. So these type of cases are quite groundbreaking. So yeah, that's a difficult question. But there is an exception in the GDPR, but this case law that came out recently is interesting.
Another question here. So use limitation principle should end spam?
Spam comes to something called the, there is something called legitimate interest, and there's an e-privacy regulation that will be replacing the e-privacy directive of today. So spam is not directly covered in the GDPR, but it will be covered once the regulation's been rewritten. I have somebody in my team in Brussels writing this regulation. So basically, it's everything to do with marketing. And at the moment, the marketing guys are in like a sort of a GDPR paralysis phase, what I call GDPR paralysis, because the new law is looking to be quite strong. So marketing needs to be more creative how they're working. But spam, yes, it has to be, unsolicited marketing should stop. Has to stop. It will not be legal because the data subject has to opt in.
And now I'm switching to Swedish just to tell you these questions the right way because they are written in Swedish.
Ja.
You can answer the way you want. I en organisation så finns ju mycket information. Hur går lagstiftningen ihop med statistik som organisationen tar fram?
Yeah, I guess this is talking about when you start to anonymize data and stuff and you want to do research, is that right?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So basically, there is you need to anonymize data, personal data, in a way, in an industry standard way that's recognized. The anonymization geeks will say you can't truly anonymize things, but the best way to doing it is to say if you can reverse it, so it's pseudonymized, then it is still personal data. But as long as that data can be linked back to an individual as personal data and the rules apply with that, which includes that you need to have the permission of the data subject.
En annan fråga här, omfattas våra interna användare av GDPR? Har de samma rätt att bli glömda som man har som kund?
Like employees, I would say. Yes, an employee is a data subject, and there you have rights. You don't give consent to become an employee of an organization. You actually sign a contract, and this is the second legal basis for processing. And you have the same rights. So when you leave your job, you have the right to request to know what is being stored on you, and this includes your performance data, which is subjective data, but subjective data concerning your performance is also personal data and can harm you.
Och mindre ideella organisationer, hur ska de kunna hålla medlemsregister? Har de samma möjligheter att ha medlemsregister?
Ja, till medlemsregister. Yeah, you need to, if somebody has asked to be a part of a, I think I understood that again. Could you just...
Mindre organisationer, mindre ideella organisationer.
Yeah. So basically, they need to check that with they got the medlem. If you've already got somebody on your list, they can stay there if they have agreed to be there. If they haven't agreed to be there, then you need to request permission to include them. Otherwise, they have to be removed.
Okay, and the last question.
Yeah.
I have a bunch of old business cards from contacts. Do I need to burn them?
Yeah, there's something called where we start to come into this freedom of information thing. And basically, if you share your personal data in the public domain, which means that you share your business cards, it means that you are making it public, so it's no longer private, and it can be used in a way. But the thing is that you need to. This is still a very grey area at the moment. But it should be okay to just carry on like you are for now, and come back to me in about 6 months to a year time when the e-privacy regulation comes out, and I'll give you more on that. Okay.
Så om man inte har börjat än. Många här har börjat, några inte. Vad är det man framförallt ska tänka på?
Yeah, I would say first of all you need to get budget. Put somebody in charge of the program, and the team that's doing it there's a lot of talk about a DPO, a data protection officer. The profile that has been described is quite complex. Nobody exists, not even I fulfill that criteria. I need to have a legal sidekick. So your privacy office should have a cross-disciplinary mix of competencies. You need to have a legal guy there, you need to have a security guy, you need to have a compliance guy, and get them to work together.
Stort tack, Karen Lawrence Öqvist. Då, Pernilla Warberg, nu är det dags att avsluta e-förvaltningsdagarna och Publicom för den här gången.
Precis.
Vad tar du med dig från den här konferensen?
Jag tar med mig väldigt mycket ny information. Jag som inte egentligen då är målgruppen som kommunikatör inom den offentliga verksamheten utan som moderator. Jag har lärt mig oerhört mycket och framförallt så har jag ju känt och sett att alla deltagarna har varit väldigt positiva och glada. Känt en entusiasm, känt en delaktighet och ett väldigt starkt intresse. Och de återkopplande kommentarerna man har fått har varit att det har varit mycket matnyttigt och mycket tips och mycket sån här, ni vet, stolthet över att ja, men vi gör nog ganska mycket bra saker också redan.
Vi gör mycket bra redan, men vi behöver göra ännu mer framåt och förändras och hitta nya sätt att göra nya saker. Det har varit fantastiskt roligt att få dela de här dagarna med er. Samma vecka nästa år så kommer e-förvaltningsdagarna och Publicom att köras igen. Exakt vilka datum det är, det får ni gärna kolla. Men det kommer ju, ni kommer ju få veta detta på ett eller annat sätt. Och sen får ni gärna kolla in offentlig chef. 17-18 januari i Uppsala. Om ni vill förkovra er lite mer när det gäller just ledarskap i det offentliga. Jag kommer vara där. Jag hoppas att ni också kommer att vara där.
Sen kan vi säga då, i år har vi varit fler än vad vi har varit tidigare år. Och det innebär ju att det finns ett starkt intresse. Och det är ju väldigt många som inte har varit här. Och då kan man ju hjälpa till att dela med sig av den här fantastiska kunskapen som vi har berikats med de här 2 dagarna. Dels genom att dela med sig av den här filmningen som har streamats här. Både här inne i T-delen och på K2. Som läggs ut på offentliga affärers hemsida. Så den tycker jag att ni ska gå in och titta på och dela med er av till andra kollegor.
Och sen några som har jobbat väldigt mycket med de här dagarna men som inte har synts på scen och inte fått så mycket cred än. De står här med blommor. Från Hexanova, ge en riktigt varm applåd till de här grymma projektledarna.
Och lika så tycker jag till de som alltid finns med och som gör det möjligt för er att både höra och se oss här men som själva aldrig heller syns speciellt mycket. Det är teknikerna som alltid är till god hjälp.
Vill ni säga något avslutningsvis?
Vi från Hexanova vill ju tacka våra fantastiska moderatorer. Pernilla och Anna, ni är fantastiska och tack för allt.
Tack för att vi får vara med här.